Hello everybody, welcome to the Dumbass Show. I'm Rob Duanius, resident dumbass, and I just got done recording 35 minutes of art tips with my mic off. It's very entertaining. It's very entertaining. Son of a bitch! Alright, so our readers, Superskins, from Instagram, hit me up and asked me for some help. This be his art. So I'm going to explain again, very carefully, how I answered it the first time, because I recorded without any stuff. So here's what he says. Rob, I send you a message on Instagram to see if you could review one of my commission pieces that he is working on, which is what you see here. He got the gestured down. Wolverine was done with my silhouette technique, and Jean Grey was done in his traditional skeletals technique. I'm loving the silhouette technique, but I find it pretty hard to actually do and get a great shape to start me off, but I feel like I'm getting there slowly each time I try it. I'd love to see what you think and get some constructive criticism from myself. Really admire your work. Amazing style. Appreciate it. Alrighty, so what he's saying is this is a commission that he's working on. And this dude's supposed to be Wolverine. I'm going to imagine this is a Jean Grey type character. And there was some rubble of some sort. And this was drawn using a skeleton, right? I'm assuming like, you know, he went and did like this, right? And then did like this, and I don't know. It looks more like, let's say like this, and then who knows where that goes. And the Wolverine was done where he sort of blobbed in something like this, right? And then drew into the volume. Right, okay. So, and you're having trouble with that. Well, let's talk about a few things. One, construction in a general sense. I really recommend everyone sit down at least once a year and work on a refresher for construction and figure construction. Here is a basic pose that I drew earlier. You can practice this yourself, you know, where you sort of just sketch in. Let's add some new stuff here, right? So let's add in a couple body types. Let's go like maybe if it's X-Men, right? We got the Blob. And with this, you can always, son of a bitch, transform, duplicate. Now you're like, Rob, that isn't a person. Trick to doing this is to rotate it a little bit and erase the head and kind of like draw the head. That's how I generally do that. You can go with a few different body types this way. You can also come up with, let me move this over. Let's say like a really big, you know, super villain or mega super guy, right? Where you practice drawing straight on the characters in silhouettes and then draw shapes into those silhouettes. It's a good tool. One, it helps focus on just how to do silhouettes. Two, it also helps you focus on character construction, which I think you really need some brush up work on. I can take that, edit, transform, flip horizontal. Let's take the feet and kind of just rotate them a little bit. Okay, make sure he has a little bit of a crotch there. Not doing that too close. And it's kind of sketching the rest. It's close enough, right? And then you can always resize however you want to do this. If you want smaller feet, you can just warp here in Photoshop, however you want to do it. But this comes in handy for a multitude of reasons. One, silhouettes aren't a final point. They're not like, I need to go and make the most perfect outline of Wolverine possible with the silhouette. What they are containers. Containers to put the drawing into. So how that works is, let's say I wanted to have a hand come at me in perspective. Right? If I were to do it the how to draw a Marvel way kind of classic thing, you would kind of start with the shoulder line, and then you would, you know, have the hand out here, and there'd be these points, you know, and you're probably lining these all up to perspective and guides. I don't know, man. I hate that shit. What I would do is I can just blob in the silhouette of a hand, kind of work behind myself, and create a container. So in my mind, I'm still seeing the shape in my mind as I sketch this in. Okay? All I've done is given myself a limited container, so I'm not drawing way the fuck off the page. If I were to just loosely like sketch this, if I were just to sketch this freehand, I might end up drawing way off the page or acting all crazy. You know, and if I turn that down, my hand's going to be huge, but you get my idea. I'm just using this as a guide. Even if the proportions are a little off, I can come here and then get the foreshortening, draw what's in front of me, and only work out what needs to be, what's going to be seen. Whatever's hidden due to foreshortening, I don't draw. And then, rather than drawing stick figure legs, I'm drawing the center, the center of the top of every object. So I know, it's important to draw from center so you know how everything else works. I don't know how to better describe that. Like, if I know where the center of this leg is here, then I know from center out, this muscle will go here and this muscle will go here. And I'm seeing things three-dimensionally, topographically. If I draw right in this, if I actually draw in the center, by the way, center doesn't mean the center of the leg. Center means the center of the top of the leg, if this were a shape. So you're wondering, why is Rob saying draw from center when I'm drawing more to the left of the drawing? That's because the center is in perspective. Right? Versus, let's say here, if I were just to draw in the middle, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So this is all about drawing three-dimensionally, the same way you would sculpt, like in 3D. But you can see this silhouette is not the final drawing. It's giving me a guide to build nice three-dimensional shapes, or to start building the basic construction of giant, you know, boots and stuff that I can add props to and build off of as I continue forward. And I can go here and be like, boom! I don't know what that is, but you know what I mean. You get the idea. So it's very crucial in animation, this technique. To get to this point, you need to do lots of these front view things. So if you take this front view and kind of quickly sketch out some anatomy, just build your basic character, you can then sketch the same character three-dimensionally in perspective. And I recommend, as soon as you can, this is called 3/4 perspective. Let's draw a grid plane. So this is 1 point, and this is technically 3/4, or your typical, you know, two-point perspective, where you have a three-dimensional floor plane. And I have a little grid that I'm putting him on. See how that works? And this is going, the horizon line somewhere around here. So we're seeing underneath things as we go up. We're seeing underneath his pecs, we're seeing underneath the abs, you know, his knuckles. So by lining these shapes up, here's the collarbone, here's the chest, here's the hips, you can make another silhouette, right? Using the front view as a guide. If you don't understand this technique, you may want to build a little ground plane, a volume is what I would say. Then what you can do is to get the backside of a character, you can duplicate the exact same silhouette, right? This requires a little bit of imagination. It's kind of a magic trick, but watch this. I duplicated the same exact thing. Now, here the center goes along his chest, right? Let me see. So here's the center of his chest. Here we're going to find the center of his back. Right, so his shoulders come up here. This is the neck. That's the back of his booty. And then what we're going to do is just erase that foot out a little bit so it's in perspective. Erase out this arm and just re-silhouette that into perspective. And I'm using this as sort of a quick measurement guide. And then you very quickly get these model sheets, three-dimensional character model sheets, without doing tons of, see, I didn't do tons of like lining, I didn't get a ruler out and fucking measure a shitload of things. Let me tell you why I don't do that. Because it takes for fucking ever. Like, I spent years in the army doing this, and I would sit here every night with my characters and kind of learn how to like draw a fat person, whatever, a skinny person, a bulky guy, a thicker chick, a big booty chick. I'd learn how to do them all, and then I'd spend my little ruler trying to line every little thing up, every little thing up, every little thing up. And there's no time for that in an art department. I knew that. I'd watch documentaries and conduct interviews at Comic-Con, and everyone would tell me, man, you know, when you're under schedule, there's no time for that. So I figured out this little trick of silhouettes that helped buy me a lot more productive time. You know? Let's go ahead and delete that center line. And then if it's a little off, you just, oh shit. Come here, make sure you select them both. Alright, you just, in perspective. Good to go. So very quickly you can start to think about your characters three-dimensionally. Alright? Now you're wondering, how does that help me with my commission? Well, I would design Wolverine this way. I would design your Jean Grey this way. And figure out what kind of shapes you want them to have before you even begin. Because, quite frankly, like when I sort of look at this design, Wolverine looks awfully weird to me. Like he has a giant head, right? He has a big head. And he has sort of a thin, trapezoidal little body, like this. Right? And your arm shapes here are more like, I don't think you fully understand this sort of thing yet. So what I went and did initially was, I said, okay, first thing I would do in this situation is figure out where my volume is. Because I want to place characters in a drawing. Anytime I want to place characters in a drawing, you'll see me do this. I lay out a basic grid. This is the grid. So I figured out your horizon line loosely is somewhere around here, based on the fact that you can see over objects here, and you're looking underneath objects by here. So roof, and in basic, if you don't understand how a horizon line works, like let's look at a cube, right? When a cube is above the horizon line, you see underneath it. When a cube is under the horizon line, you see on top of it. See how that works? If you don't understand that, I can't help you. He'd go learn that, then come back. But first thing I did was built a volume. I turned the volume down, opacity-wise, and then I sketched in some debris, because you got some debris. I want to create an arena in which these characters are going to exist. I turned the opacity of that down, like right around here, and then I drew all this stuff you see here into perspective, right? By just saying, all right, I know I want to, you know, I'm going to see the tops of these rocks, right? So this is the top of these rocks. This is the top. This is the top, all right? Or this is the top of a side. This right here. So all this debris we're seeing the tops down to the bottoms with. Even this like girder here, just iron girder. And then you had this other iron girder in the foreground. So I said, well, you know, you could blob that in in perspective using silhouettes. I duplicate that, filled it with white to turn the opacity down, and then I sketched in the girder because see we would see on top of it, right? Before we even start there, we can then build. Maybe it's more like this, and we can remove some of that up there. Pretty big on like. So then you got a place to start placing. You got a place to place your characters, right? Then I quickly sketched in a Wolverine, doing roughly the same thing. Maybe a little bit more like just. The problem I think you have right now is your characters are very flat. Like you're trying to show. It looks as though to me like your brain's trying to show all sides of perspective. Like these claws should be coming at me. They'd almost curve a little bit in that instance, right? And like this would come like this. This would come this way. Maybe that curves. You know, like first off, these claws don't even fit in this arm. So think about that. Be careful you don't be that guy who does that Deadpool where they come way the fuck out here, right? Like, so even if you wanted these coming straight out, you got like a length issue. But you do want to work on your foreshortening, things that are in front of other things. Let me move this to the side. So then I turned that down and I quickly built a basic character construction, Wolverine style, based on that. But what I would do before I even started is I would try to figure out what kind of Wolverine I want to build, right? How do I know how stocky I want him to be? Well, I know that because I would go and these little skeletons right here, I would go and make one for a Wolverine. I'd make one where he was 5 heads tall or 4 heads tall, maybe a little thicker, maybe he's a thinner guy. Like Jim Lee's Wolverine was thinner. It wasn't that big, thick, you know, Humberto Ramos kind of style Wolverine. You know, if you want to give him boots or comic things, comic book, whatever. So, and then to keep in mind, you know, about foreshortening, to sketch this stuff in, you know, so, because if right now you got to train your brain to see three-dimensionally. Right now it's like it's trying to push. I think right now if you drew it, it would probably do something like this. It would probably come out and you'd be pushing. It's almost like your mind wants to do this to all your characters, like unwrap them. Like you see people doing this all the time. Like your stuff just constantly ends up like that. Something else to think about too, because it's in a three-dimensional volume. When you get to your Jean Grey character, where did I put here? She would be significantly smaller if she's up in the air, and you would see the underneath. If these are her breasts, you would see underneath. And by the way, you can still bend things. Even though you're seeing underneath, you can still see a top of some if it's bending. Now that's weird, right? That's a little weird, right? But that comes down to like there are multiple horizon lines. There are multiple vanishing points on a horizon line. So it's a fundamental perspective. Matt Andy asked me if this is paint over. No, this is fan help. He has questions about construction and silhouettes. So the scaling due to atmosphere and perspective would be, should be looking down, right? And so he would be bigger and she would be further away. And in the coloring of the image, you would reflect that with atmospherics. She would be lighter in color. Then I can come here and see how I'm erasing the silhouette. Yeah, no problem. Again, to get back to the fact that the silhouette is not the final image. It's a container to get me to build the construction of the character for the final image. You know? You don't have to draw the perfect Wolverine silhouette to shove Wolverine into. It just gives you a container, a block, right? Like a molding point or a plate to keep your food in. And it's kind of wobbly. It's not perfect. But just based on Okay, this is really basic, building a volume, right? Placing characters three-dimensionally in the volume. Using the silhouettes to block in the shape of the character, you know, versus because it's just blobs. Building the construction three-dimensionally. You can do that in the computer. You can print the same thing out. I drew them all the time. Print them out manually, figure out the construction, just construction. That doesn't mean I'm working out her you know, mask design and everything else. Just the basic figure construction. And then, by the way, if you want a moon, you know, I would probably put the moon behind her, or maybe like tying them together somehow like this, you know, maybe one of those big Stephen Platt style moons, you know. Oh my God, now they're together, yeah. So I don't know how you want to work that out. Using these very basic, tried and true construction techniques, it can make a huge difference in your art. Huge difference. Relatively, dare I say, overnight. Like the thing that you need to remember is you need to train your mind to see things three-dimensionally. The practicing for do that are building three-dimensional models. Pop open a free version of a 3D program and take some tutorials, you know, so you can start to see things three-dimensionally. You know, maybe this is more like so. All right. Oh yeah, and obviously she didn't come down to fit in the frame, but you get the idea. And very quickly we could take your idea and reconfigure it into a composition that is more dynamic or impactful, iconic. That's the word I'm thinking of. And it adheres to rules of 3D. Is it perfect? No, doesn't ever have to be. Okay, matter of fact, I almost feel like imperfections make it. However, you don't want glaring sort of like constructional issues, you know. So this requires time and practice. Replay this video often, and if you have any questions, you know, like, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I have done this twice now. This is my second time doing this cast, but the microphone's on, so it all works. Again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Email me direct, rob@sketchcraft. I really, truly do have other work to do, so I'm going to get to that now. I will be back on very soon with more art. See you in a minute, folks. Peace. Oh man, that's Dose. Dose Helpies.